Welcome everyone to week 3 of the Expansion Blueprint series. Today we'll be talking about living with purpose. As you're, sitting, listening, driving, I want you to think of something. Have you ever had that feeling like you were meant for something more? Like the life that you built, while it felt and looked successful on the outside, it wasn't fully aligned with who you are on the inside. And as you're thinking, that feeling might resonate with you too, because I know what that feeling has been like because I've lived it. For years, I followed the path that I thought I was supposed to take. I became a physician. I worked hard. I checked all the success boxes, but deep down, something felt off. I loved medicine, but I felt this pull, this somewhat nagging feeling that I was meant to do something more, something bigger, something more expansive, and something that would not only change my life, but also allow me to impact others in an even greater way. At first, I ignored it. I told myself that this is the life that I'm leading, and that it was good enough. So I told myself, keep your head down and just keep working. But that nagging feeling, it never went away. And eventually, I think I had to ask myself, what if that feeling was not a sign of dissatisfaction, but what if that feeling, that nagging feeling, was a sign of possibility? Like, what if what if this was my purpose that was finally tugging at my heart, that I really, really needed to pay attention to? And it was that realization that changed everything. And it led me on this journey of self-discovery, where I could really get clear on a few things, and these 3 things in particular. And these are the same things I want you to be thinking about tonight. What truly excites me? What fuels me? So think about that as like my talent. And these are the questions that I was asking myself years ago. I asked myself also, what unique strengths do I bring to the table? That's something I definitely want you to also be asking yourself. And then how can I use those to create meaningful and lasting impact? That's another question that I kept asking myself, and I want you guys to ask yourself as well. And those questions are the questions that led me to build Pheenyx Capital, because I realized that one of my biggest purposes was to empower high achieving professionals, just like you on this call, on this webinar, to create financial freedom and impact through real estate investing. And that was the thing that was nagging at my heart. And that was what I finally had to listen to. Now, that story is just one example, right? And this session isn't about me, it's about you. But here's the truth that I want you to really grasp, is that you already have everything that you need to start and also to step into your purpose. You already have the passion, you already have the strength, you already have the talent, and you have the ability to create impact. But the only thing missing is clarity and action. How can I answer those questions with certainty, with clarity? And then how can I take action? And that is exactly what we're going to uncover today. I'll say this, and I say this every week, this is meant to be interactive. I know that, I can't see your faces, but a lot of you here are people who have come back, are repeat attendees. And so I want you to use the chat. I want you to use the questions, ask questions. And if you have questions and you put in the chat, we'll pull it out and put in the questions, and I'll be able to answer afterwards. And this will be super interactive, so I will also follow along in the chat as well. I want you to take notes, if you can, and if you can't, I also want you to, if you can take notes, take notes. But if not, I want you to go back and re-listen to this, or watch it, and then really spend some time going into deep detail, and diving into what we're going to talk about today. The worksheets, as usual, will be uploaded in the handout section. So if you're on your computer, it's in the apps section, on the bottom towards the right. If you click on the apps, you can click on handouts and it'll be there. But if you're using your phone, there's the 3 dots and it says more next to it. Click on that and you should still see handouts, and then click on that and you should get the handouts. And I think one of my team members just put the handouts, made it available to you. Lastly, I'm asking for feedback. Tell me what's working. Tell me what isn't working, how I can improve, how I can serve you better. I would love to do that. Okay, so I've gotten a lot of questions and I wanted to address this again real quickly. So we recently launched the Expansive Circle, and I'm inviting everyone here to join. The Expansive Circle is more than just a community. It is a movement. We have designed the space, we created the space for ambitious, growth-driven individuals who are ready to break free from limitations, to build wealth, and to create a life that is like truly filled with purpose, with freedom, with success. That's what the communities is about. And you might be thinking here, like, why should I join, right? So a few things when I think about the purpose of my expansive community, or the expansive community, think about, unlocking personal growth and development. That's a very important factor as to why you should join. So you'll gain access to like transformational tools, strategies, mindset shifts that will help you achieve some of your biggest goals. We will also, inside of our community, you'll have investments and wealth building strategies. So how to grow, how to protect your wealth, with insights from real estate business. We'll be pulling financial experts to come and have conversation to educate you guys and to empower you guys. We will have exclusive courses. One of our courses are coming out within the next few weeks, and we'll have master classes. So you'll be able to expand your knowledge. You'll be able to, join these courses and learn. Think leadership, think investing, think personal growth, think entrepreneurship. Those are some of the classes that we will be pushing out. From next week, we'll also start having weekly check-in discussions. And so that's like, you come in, you stay engaged, you set your goals, we'll track progress, we'll do it together as a community. And then there's also private accountability groups as well. So then think about like how you can come and spur each other on with like high thinking, high level thinkers, individuals who you can take action together. That is the whole idea behind the accountability groups. And then obviously we'll have all our you will have webinar libraries, premium resources that you can use to help you grow. So think about this as like the ultimate space for you if you're serious about stepping into your full potential and truly like living an expansive life, which is what it's all about. And for the first 50 people who join, the first 50 members, you will get 1 year free access to the community. Just use the code FOUNDER, one word, and you should be able to get access into it. Okay, so let's jump in. I want you to just take a moment and imagine you wake up every day and you're energized, knowing that what you're doing isn't just making a living, but you're like really making a difference. Your work reflects your passion, it reflects your income, it reflects your worth. Just think about that. Like, doesn't that sound amazing? Doesn't that sound like the perfect life or the perfect dream? But for most of us, maybe that reality is a little different, right? We're stuck in routines, we're stuck in jobs, in roles that just pay the bills, but they don't really fill our soul. Why is that, you might ask? It's because somewhere along the way, right, we lost touch of our purpose. We lost touch of the thing that we're supposed to be doing. And I use myself as an example, and because I know this firsthand. I remember very vividly at work, it's those odd hours where it's maybe a little quiet and you're thinking it's 2 a.m. and I'm looking at charts in the ER and I'm wondering, is this it? Is there more? Is this all I'm supposed to be doing? And I loved helping people. But like I said earlier on, like I felt like a part of me was shrinking. And that was the moment like that set off the beginning of transformation. So as you're sitting here, as you're thinking, like maybe you've had that feeling, that tug, and maybe you deciding to be here today is the transformation that you needed to start your journey. I've said this before, this isn't just another webinar. It's not just another workshop. It's not just another masterclass. It is an awakening. And by the end of today, I really want to provide you with the tools. I also want to provide you, like I said before, with clarity and then a plan that you can use and you can go implement and you can take action. Okay. It's time to get real because I want these numbers to jar you as much as it has jarred me. Research shows that 78% of high achievers, yes, that is like the people that, society considers very successful. They feel unfulfilled. And it's not because they're not talented, but it's because they're chasing goals that no longer resonate with their values. And so think about some of the things that they're struggling with is like the financial impact, right? They are thinking about the opportunities that they're missing, thinking about income streams that they could have built, and investments that you could have made. When you think about the personal impact to what this is doing to your level of satisfaction, think about the time with your family, or time or not spent with your family, or time not spent taking care of your health. How many of those moments have you sacrificed for a career that feels somewhat empty? And then when you think about legacy, right? That's, I think, maybe one of the more important ones, because then you have to ask yourself, like, what happened to your dreams? The impact that you were meant to make, the impact that you were supposed to make, what happened to it when you decided to stay stuck, when you decided to, just continue doing what you're doing right now and ignoring that small whisper, that small voice that's tugging at your heart? I want you to think about it for a second, right? What has staying in your comfort zone really cost you? Like, that's what you need to be thinking about. And as you have your notes, your pen and paper, I want you to start thinking about writing that down. What's missing? I want us to call it out. So if you can, drop it in the chat. Write something that, like, if you stayed where you are today, and this was the crux of our first session, right? What is it going to cost you if you stay where you are today? What are you missing out? If you the more you say it out loud, the more you write it, the more it becomes real, and the more you can look at it and stare it in the face and realize that, like, this is something that I want to tackle. This is something that I want to do something about. Right now, there are many people who feel stuck on one side of the bridge. So think about this bridge, right? Think about the left side as, as like your current reality. So where you are right now, that's what you need to think about. Like, the left side of the bridge. So think about the bridge on the left side is, like I said, your current reality. And then think about the middle of the bridge as like the transformation, right? And then think about the right side of the bridge as like your prosperity potential. And think about, so if you're trading all your time for money, you're feeling limited by your circumstances, and you're wondering how to break free, think about this bridge as like your transformation. So like I said, that's how it starts. And it's one side, which is where you have multiple streams of income. Think about location freedom, think about your ability to impact on your own terms. And this isn't just for someone else, right? When you're thinking about like what that other side of the bridge looks like, it's not just for someone else, it's actually for you as well. And when you think about all the components of the bridge, right, you think about value identification. So what makes you unique? How do you start to think about monetizing that? And we talked about this a little bit last week, right? And for those of you who missed last session, I'll definitely send it out. But then as you're thinking about creating value, what is that thing that is unique to you? And then you start thinking about systems, right? How do you now create repeatable processes that will free up your time and that will still amplify your impact? So what is it that you're doing that you can now, you can now scale by creating processes? And then the last thing to think about is like implementation strategy. So this is where you have to start taking action. This is where you need to test your ideas and then scale your success. So you have to take it from that tiny nagging voice saying you're supposed to do more, you're called to do more, to then take it into like, I'm going to figure out what my value is. I'm going to figure out how to create systems and then start implementing it. That is the goal by the end of today, is like, how do we get from point A to point B of that bridge? But first, before we start thinking about that, I want us to identify where you're starting from, because I think that it becomes reality when you start thinking about, this is my starting point. This is where I need to go from point A to point B. So like I said before, write down in your workbook or your paper or wherever you are, but write down an area of your life that you feel the most stuck. And I want to empower you to share it in the chat as well. Is it time? Is it money? Is it fulfillment? Where are you stuck right now? And I want you to be honest, because one, when you're honest with yourself, then that's when change starts to happen. And if you can be honest and vulnerable and share that with others, then you can also help them grow as well. So if it's not too personal, I definitely want you to go ahead and share so that we can grow. And Alice just said time, money, fear. And that's true. Those are all the things where, like, right now she feels stuck, and that's something that she needs to do something about. So take a little bit of time. Fulfillment, Olajide, I love that. And that's like an area where we could start to do something about it. What does fulfillment look like on the other side of the bridge? I want you to just keep reflecting on it, right? And then I want you to ask yourself this question: what is stopping you from moving forward? So, what is stopping you? Like, what is that fear that is stopping you? Or, Lajay, why aren't you fulfilled? Ask yourself that question. And that's the gap that you need to close. And that's what we're going to figure out by the end of this session, which is how to turn your purpose into impact. Look at what you wrote. This is the starting point of transformation. That's what I want you to spend some time really, writing, thinking, and just like start figuring out what it is that is stopping you from moving forward. And all of those people who are commenting, I appreciate it in the chat, because you're helping yourself, and two, you're empowering others to do the same thing. So this is exactly what we're going to be diving in today, right? So we're going to start with, the first thing we'll do is we'll start with discovering your purpose. When I ask you these questions, it's not just for me to ask you, it's for you to also ask yourself, so what lights you up? What makes you unique? What makes you different? How do you stand out? That's when you start thinking about these questions and you start thinking about the value that you can bring to others. And then the biggest thing is that you want to start thinking about how to turn that purpose into something profitable, because the more value that you can give to others, it takes away that idea that you're selling to them, because you're really giving them value. Then, like I mentioned earlier, just a little bit, we're going to explore systems. How do we make it sustainable? Especially if you're like a one-man or one-woman business right now, how do you make that sustainable? So think about using software, using AI, start thinking about bringing people in. And then finally, last section is we'll end with action. So what are the steps that you need to take to now live this purpose-driven, prosperous life? This is no longer about dreaming. Yes, I told you in the beginning to take a second and just think and dream, but now it's going to be, we need to start doing. We need to take it from our heart, our brain, and then put it down into paper and then start implementing. So if you're ready, I want you to get excited, and I just want you to put something great in the comment and just say, hey, I'm excited. I'm ready to start. I'm ready to take it from, my brain, my heart, put it down on paper and get going. So again, if you joined a little late, I put the worksheet so you can follow along right now. Yay! I put the worksheets in the app. One of our team members put the worksheets. If you click on apps, if you're on a computer, again, I'll say it. If you're on the computer, click on apps and click on handouts. And then if you're on your phone, on the bottom, the three dots, click more, and then you should have the handouts inside of there. So follow along. And if you can't do it right now, i.e. you're driving, take some time, print it out, and then do it at a later time. But I do encourage, and I want to empower you to take the time to answer those questions, because you're only bettering yourself. So we're going to talk about the purpose sweet spot, right? It's the intersection of those three key elements that we talked about. I asked you, what are you passionate about? What are the things that light you up? Is it teaching? Is it, like creating systems? What is it? What are you naturally good at? So what are your strengths? Then think about like the impact that you want to create in the world. That difference that only you can make, that's what I want you to start thinking about. So I want you to put it in the chat, right? I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to put it in the chat. How many of you feel that you're clear about your passions? You know your strengths, you know what you're really good at, and you know like the legacy that you want to leave. How many people actually know that? I'm going to pause for a second and just like put it in the chat if you feel like, I know my passion, I know what I'm good at, I know my strengths, I know the impact that I want to make. Just say me in the comments of that if you have an idea of that. And as people are writing, I want to say something. You might not know that yet, right? You might not, you might say, I'm getting there, I'm going to spend the time to do this. But I want to encourage you and I want to empower you, right? Everyone here, great. Lajide says he thinks he has an idea. I want to tell you this, that everyone here has a component of all these three elements inside of you. But maybe you haven't connected the dots yet. And I think that's maybe what's stopping you, is that you don't know how to connect the dots. And that's what we're going to do here. So if you don't feel clear or if you're not sure about it, it's okay. One thing I want you to know is that like we are all figuring this out and we're doing it together. And that's the beauty of the community, right? So I want us to break it down step by step. because I want you to help uncover your sweet spot. So think about your passion, your strengths, your impact. And then that sweet spot is figuring out like how you are now going to take this to the world. So now that, you asked and you've answered some of these questions, now that you've explored your passion, you've thought about your strengths and your impact, let's really delve into uncovering that purpose sweet spot, right? It's the core of who you are and what you're meant to do. So think about like if you have your workbook, when you do, right, you'll see a Venn diagram. In that Venn diagram, I want you to write one sentence that summarizes your purpose. So I want you to think about combining, remember we talked about your passion, your strengths, and then your desired impact. Think about combining that into one single statement. And so it could be something like, I help busy professionals simplify their lives so that they can achieve balance and live intentionally. That could be yours. Or it could be, I help healthcare professionals build passive income through real estate investing. That's another purpose statement. So I want you to, as soon as you start figuring out what your passion is, what your strength is, and your desired impact, that single statement is something that you need to write. It's something that you probably want to start saying to yourself over and over again. And then so it becomes like part of you, so that you can, because you need sometimes when it's hard, when the days are long, and when you work all day, sometimes it's really important to figure out, to remember your why. Why did I do this? Because that is the starting point. Now, for some of us perfectionists in the room, or recovering perfectionists, it doesn't have to be perfect. This sentence, you can make it better, but I want you to start, and I want you to write it. I want you to actually take a pen, take a paper. If you're, if you didn't print it, write it on your phone or send a text to yourself, but write that purpose statement right now. And then after you write it, right, who can you share it with? Who can you tell? Who is your accountability partner, or your friend, or your business partner, or your spouse, or your close friend that you want to share this with, so that they can keep you accountable? That's where it starts. Because if you it's one thing to think it, but it's another thing to put it down on paper. And if and this is why I still want to keep pushing you. So if you want to write it in the chat, go ahead and write it. If you think you've come up with an idea of what your purpose statement is, or even a semblance of it, I want you to write it. Because what you're doing is, like I said, you're putting pen to paper and you're keeping yourself accountable. But you might also, what you say might resonate with someone else, and it actually might inspire them to think along those lines, or help them even create theirs. So as I'm talking, as we keep going, as it's coming to you, I definitely want you to write it down in the chat, write it in your workbook, write it on the wall, write it on your vision board, because that's the spark to start creating, to start taking it to the next level, and going past what's in your heart and what's in your brain, and start implementing and taking action. Okay, so I want us to talk about strengths, right? Strengths are the things that that come really naturally to you, that you might not even recognize them as strengths. But think about it. What feels really easy to you that might feel impossible to someone else, that is your strength. So as you're thinking about, what am I good at? How can I bring value? What are some of your strengths? Think about it. I want you to write it down. And for some people here, it might be, thinking about like how to simplify really complex ideas. For other people, your strength might be like you're just a natural connector, right? You build relationships, you do it so effortlessly. And I think those people are very amazing, because they know a lot of people, and they can listen to, like your needs, and connect you with the right people. And maybe you might be really amazing at solving problems, organizing chaos, or leading a team. Maybe your area might be strong. You might be strong in operations. And so it's like figuring out what your strengths are, where you're good at, and then, think about like, how can I now build that out? I'll share with you, because I want to encourage you, if you're thinking about it. For me, my strength is connecting the dots, right? I'm good at seeing how one skill or one concept can be applied to like a completely different area. And that's when I started thinking about that, right? I started honing in on that superpower. And that's how I was able to, transition from medicine to real estate investing. It's because I could see how I could use one skill and one concept and then like really use it to impact lives in another area. So what about you? What are your strengths? What are the things that you're good at? And this might just seem like an exercise, but it's so important for you, because then when you start piecing it together, right? When you start figuring out what your passion is, what your strengths are, and bringing it into your impact and your value, then you can think about how can you monetize this? How can you, and then there's going to be a mindset shift that we need to do, because then you are going to see it as really giving value to someone else. You're going to see it as helping someone else with their pain point or their problem. You're going to think about it as someone, you become a problem solver. That's what I want you to think about. So I hope that all of this is like helping you jog your memory. But I want you at this right now, right? I want you to list 3 tasks that you find really easy to do, but you think other people struggle with. Think about that. And I want you to jot it down, write it down. And then think about 3 things that people always ask you for help. If you're the person who, someone always comes and says, hey, can you create that, Excel, or can you do that because you do it so well? You might be really good with operations, and then you might figure out how you can use that and build software and build systems from that. So that's what I want you to think about. Or even think about, like, what do you receive compliments on? Like, what do you do so well that other people see and highlight it? Take a little bit of time. I'll give you about 60 seconds. I want you to answer that question. And I want you to think about that. When you write all of those things down, I want you to circle the one that feels the most valuable to you. Or if you've thought them, when you thought about one specific strength, maybe that got you so excited. That's probably the most valuable one to you. And that's probably the one that you want to do something with. So I want you to think about that. If anyone is brave enough, I want you to share what your strength is. Are you a connector? Can you simplify complex tasks? Are you really good at solving problems? Are you really good at organizing a team? You have like leadership just so innate in you? What are some of the things that you're really good at, that are some of your strengths, that maybe now we want to like bring that out of you and then and build that? So don't be shy. The more you give, the more you'll grow, the more you'll learn. And this space really is like, own your greatness. So if there's a strength that you're like, I'm really good at this, toss it in the chat. Or if you have questions about like, how do I figure out what my strengths are? Maybe I'm like Superwoman and I have 10 different strengths. How do I figure out the right one that I need to hone in on? Please feel free to ask me questions. I'd love to answer it. So this one, we talked about value and we talked about strength. Now I want us to talk about impact. And this one is really big, right? Because at the end of the day, your purpose isn't just about what excites you or what you're good at. It's about the difference that you make in the world. And that's something that I want you to think about. So as much as like, yes, you know your values, and yes, you know your strengths, when you start thinking about impact, right? Think about like how the difference that you're going to make in the world. That's what you have to start thinking about. Ask yourself, right? What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? What ripple effect do you want to create with your work, with what you're doing? If you had unlimited time, unlimited resources, unlimited money, what problem would you solve? That's what you need to start thinking about when you start thinking about the type of impact that you want to make. I'll give you an example, right? Maybe you want to inspire people to live healthier lives. And so maybe like health is just something that you're really passionate about. Maybe that's the impact you want to leave. Or maybe you want to create financial opportunities for others and you want to help them grow generational wealth. That's an impact that you want to make, right? Or maybe your impact is smaller. It might seem smaller, but for you, it's a giant impact. And maybe you want to be a role model to your kids. Think about the impact that you want to make. That's what I want you to start thinking about. And in terms of some of the strengths, I hear in the comments, I'm good at communicating with others. That's awesome. I'm good at giving advice, encouraging, coming up with a positive solution. That's great. So now we could think about, how to use some of these strengths. So I also want you to think about impact you want to make. Now we're going to be adding this together and to be thinking about like our purpose and how we can then create prosperity from that. So take a little bit of time now, and you might need more time than I'm allotting to you in our webinar time, but I want you to let your imagination run wild. If this is your time to dream big, right? If nobody's watching, nobody's listening, um, what impact do you want to make? This is for you. These questions I'm asking you, I want you to think. I want you to dig deep and answer them, because, like I said, the more honest you are with yourself, the more likely you actually follow through with this. And like I said, this is about you and only you. So really think about what impact you want to make, and how do you want to change, whose lives you want to change, how much you want to scale it, how small. It's all for you. It's all about you. So if someone, thanks to the people who shared some of their strengths, but if someone wants to share, an impact that they want to make, toss it in the comments, toss it in the chat. Sometimes, like I said before, when you hear someone else's dreams, it will inspire you to create yours. It will inspire you to like dream, to figure out your own dreams and then start to do it. And that's the whole purpose of the community. That is exactly what we're creating here. So we talked about your passion, right? We talked about your strengths. We talked about impact. I want us to figure out that purpose sweet spot, right? It's the core of who you are and what you're meant to do. And I don't want you to take this lightly, because I think that when you figure this out, right? Remember when I asked you in the beginning, like, how many of you wake up every morning excited about like, this is the life that I'm living. This is the life that I'm going to lead today. When you figure out your purpose sweet spot, some days are still going to be hard, but it makes the days easier. It makes you waking up and making a difference so much sweeter. Hence your purpose sweet spot, right? But this is what I want you to do. I want you to figure that out. So in the center of your Venn diagram, again, write a sentence, right, that really summarizes what you're thinking. In that like one simple statement. I think that's very, very important, because it will help you, figure out exactly how you can start bringing this together. I think that is very important right now. And so as you're thinking about that, it's like purpose is not only something that you find, it's like it's really something that you will uncover. And you have to put the work, you have to do the work right now to kind of help you figure that out. So I wanted to bring this back again, because I definitely think that it's really important for you to spend the time to figure out how to create it, and then we'll go from there. So we did that, right? And some of you might still be writing and you might still be thinking, but what I want you to take away from that section that we just did is that it's not something that you have to invent, right? Your purpose is not something that you have to invent. It's something that's already within you. It's a combination of, the best way I can think about it, it's a combination of what you love doing, what you're really, really good at, and then how you can serve others. That's how I want to say that again, because I think someone really needs to hear it. When you think about your purpose, right? It's a combination of the things that you do, the things that you love, the things that you're really good at, and then how you can use that to impact others, how you can use that to serve others. And then when you kind of bring those things together, you're going to learn to turn them into something bigger. That's what we're doing here. That's what we're creating. And now that you've kind of uncovered that purpose, I think we need to talk about, how to monetize it. And I want us to not think about it as a bad thing, but like I said, and I specifically said that before, because a lot of us, when we start thinking about money, we're like, well, how can if there's something this good, why am I going to charge? But the thing is, when you give value to people, it's an exchange, right? For what you're giving them, they're giving you money in return. That's how you have to start thinking about it. And so I came up with this formula, right? And I want you to think about it as something really tangible. When you think about purpose, it's no longer something that's like in the air and mystical and magical. You've brought it down, you've written it down, and you've made it something tangible. It's something that it not only aligns with your soul, but it supports your goals and your lifestyle. That's how I want you to start thinking about purpose. And so here is the formula to, how to create that passion to profit. How do you think about that? I want you to think about starting with passion. Again, I've asked you, and the reason why I'm repeating these things is not because it just needs to be repeated, but it's because eventually when you start asking yourself the same questions over and over and over, your psyche is going to start thinking, and you're going to dig deeper, and you're going to be like, well, actually, what does energize me? And that's when you start thinking about your passion, what tickles you, what excites you. And then when you do that, add strengths to that, right? What are you uniquely capable of? What is that one thing that you do really well? And then I want you to identify a market need. So this is what we're adding to it now, right? We talked about passion, we talked about our strengths. Now think about a market need, right? What is a problem that your passion and your strength can solve? That is the big formula that we are trying to figure out today. And when you figure that out, the result is the result is something that's really meaningful, but it can also be income generating. That's the type of opportunity that I want you to think about here. But before we do that, right, let's break down the formula step by step, because then the more you can break it down and understand each piece, the easier it'll be when we bring it all back together at the end. So the key to monetizing your purpose is to identify that problem that that people are having that you can solve. That's what I want you to think about, that problem that that people are willing to pay for you to solve. I want you to think about this. Money follows value, and value is created when you solve a real problem. That's what people don't understand. And the second you understand that, and the second you come up with that, I think it's really going to help you. And so I'll give you an example, right? Some people are really passionate about wellness, and they might want to solve burnout problem. And how can they do that? They can, offer stress management coaching to help high achievers really figure out burnout and really know how to solve it. I used an example before. If you are like skilled at, in organization, like really have like really great organizational skills, you might be able to help business owners streamline their process. That's a way to now take a problem, a real problem that someone has, and figure out how to solve it. And remember, money follows value. So someone who might have like a deep medical expertise, you can create resources to help navigate the healthcare system. That's someone's problem, and you can figure out how to solve it. So I want you to think about maybe one or two problems that you are passionate about that you can solve. So what's a problem that you think that your passion or your strengths can help you solve, or can help solve someone else's problem? I want you to think about, I don't want you to make it complex, right? Think about your friends, think about your colleagues, think about clients, think about people that you face every day. How can you help them? That's something that I want you to think about as we're going through it, because when you can think about the problems that your passion and your strength can solve, then we can think about how we can start monetizing it. Take a second or 30 seconds to just reflect on that. Write down as many problems as you can think of, no matter how big, no matter how small. Think about the problems that maybe you face, or that your friends or your colleagues or clients or family members face, and think about how you can help solve that. And if anyone thinks about a problem that they've identified, toss it in the chat. And also, I've given you some examples, but sometimes you might have an example that might spark something else in someone else, and that might help them even create help them create a solution to a problem that they didn't even know that they had. So think again that solving problem, it creates value, and then value creates income. That's how I want you to start thinking about it. Actually, in everything that you do, I want you to start thinking about that, because it's always, how can I solve someone else's problem? So we kind of walk through identifying that problem, right? That problem that you can solve. The next step is now finding the people that need your solution. That person or those group of people, that is your target audience. That's your market. Those are the people that you're going to start going after. So as you figured out the problems, right? I want to ask you, or I want you to think about this question. Who benefits the most from what you have to offer? Who are those people? What group of people are actively searching for the solutions to the problem that you solve? That's your market. That is your target audience. I mentioned it earlier, but like, what is the pain point that keeps them up at night? What is that one thing that you can help them solve? I like to give examples because it just helps you. All I'm doing is just helping jog your memory to be like, okay, this is something I know that I have this strength, and I know that there are these problems that I can help solve, and these are the people that really want it. So you can think about like a fitness coach who might target busy professionals who want to stay active but they lack time, right? So that is someone who's like, okay, I have a strength. I now know that, like, I know that people don't have time, and so maybe they don't know how to exercise. They don't have time to exercise, but maybe I can create something that is like a 15-minute burst to help them solve that problem because of their lack of time. Or you can think about like really experienced educator who might then create resources to help navigate like parents who are homeschooling their kids. That's another way to think about. So I want us to think about like kind of span the gamut. So don't only think about like wealth or finance. Like think about like really any problems that like day-to-day people you can help them solve. Or you can think about like if we brought in money, you can think about like a finance expert who might help young professionals pay off student debt faster. That's something that people are struggling with and people need help. You can create something to help someone solve that problem. That's what I want you to be thinking about. So this is maybe not as much fun, but it's very important because the more time that you spend in answering these questions, in figuring out these nuances, it'll make your product, it'll make your solution so much easier, and then with that fire you're going to create something really cool. So I want you to describe your ideal audience. Who are they? You might even, if it's one person, right, you might give him a name. You might describe what he wears, what his struggles are. Think about like who do they hang out with. Think about where they meet every day. All of that is helping you really target the exact market that you want to go after, the exact audience, the exact person. So think about 2 or 3 characteristics of your target audience. I want you to then write how you can reach them. Think about how can I reach, like if for the example I gave, like, right, if it's homeschooling moms, you might target like the neighborhood HOA, like Facebook group, because maybe a lot of them are there. So think about like you could target people on social media. Think about networking groups. Think about even creating content that might help them solve that problem, so then they seek you out. That's how I want you to start thinking about. And ladies and gentlemen, it's not as difficult as we think, right? It's just asking yourself the right questions so that you can get the right answers. If someone is, I told you guys that this is supposed to be very interactive. So as I'm asking you these questions, like, write it down, toss it in the chat. Like if there's something, if there's something that like you think about right away, and you're like, yes, that's the person that I'm going after. Yes, that's the target audience. I want to connect with them on social media. You might even think, tomorrow I'm going to write a post about this so that they know that I have the strength, that this is part of my purpose. I want to help them solve that problem. This is how you start thinking about how you can even create content. We actually need to talk about specific, like how to build content, but this might be the way that you need to start doing that. If you put in the work, I promise you'll get the result. So now that you know who you're serving or you're thinking about it, I want us to talk about how to deliver your solution, right? When you package your value well, you can do that. You can create a format that works for you and your audience. So when you think about like packaging that value, it looks different for different people. And I want to give you some examples of like how you can think about packaging whatever value that you think you can give to your ideal audience. And I want you to see what I'm doing, right? We're breaking down every single step in order to get us to that answer that we want. So you could think about maybe like one-on-one coaching. So this is ideal for if you want to work really closely with people. If you want to hold someone's hand to get them to solve that exact problem, you can do that. You can think about courses and workshops, and this is maybe one to many, right? You can think about how can I reach multiple people at the same time. And you can also think about digital products, so how can I take this one thing that I've created and then scale it so it's working for me while I sleep, which is what we really want to do. And then you can also think about like passive income streams, right? So think about like investments like real estate or royalties that are going to keep growing over time. And again, I'll share with you kind of how it started for me, right? For me, I started empowering and I started teaching healthcare professionals about wealth building. And then over time, what I did is that I scaled that into webinars. And then I started creating books and courses, and then eventually started creating real estate syndication opportunities. That's how it started. I saw a problem. I saw a pain point where, busy professionals, healthcare professionals were just like focused on work and we're not able to build multiple streams of income. And I thought, well, I have figured it out. I understand it. I'm going to start teaching them and then create the opportunities for them to go and invest. That's how it started. So it didn't start with, I didn't have this huge plan, but I knew what the problem was and I knew that I had the solution, and I had to start implementing. So that is how you should be thinking about it. So I've given you some ideas, right? I want you to circle one format that really excites you and then write down one action step to start exploring this format. So if you're thinking, I want to maybe create a course, a simple course, you might think about creating an outline. That's how simple you have to start out. We make it a little bit more complicated. And the reason why, Alice, is because of fear, right? So do something, make it small, test it out to like your immediate close circle of friends, test out the idea, create some resources, some simple tools. That's how you can start. Don't overthink it. This is where we might get into analysis paralysis, and we don't do it because we're like, well, I don't have the right way. Like, I want you to know that done is better than perfect. And so just start. You can refine it later. You can make it better, but test out your ideas. Lajide said, my target audience are younger healthcare students and professionals, younger healthcare students and professionals in the early stages of their medical career. That's great. He has his target audience. He knows who he's going after. So I hope that, like, reading that you were able to realize, okay, I can figure out who my target audience is. It could be one person. It can be a group of people, and then start thinking about how you can bring them value and how you can solve their problem. That's what I want you to be thinking. Now, I told you that the first offer or the first thing is not going to be perfect. I want to like reiterate that. The first offer isn't going to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to solve a problem. I said it before, start small, test your idea, and then refine as you go. This is where we make it complicated, and it doesn't really have to be. You can just, like I said, figure out one small problem, one small pain point, and then think about how you can solve it, test that idea, and then keep refining as you go. So I want to keep giving you examples because I really want to just get it into your mind that this isn't difficult. You just have to answer questions. So let's say that you are passionate about teaching people how to save time, right? That's your thing. You're like, I have figured out how to like time block and really use my time really well. You might do like a simple offer of like a 2-hour workshop on time management. That's simple, right? And you might maybe charge $50, deliver it, get feedback, and then use that to then create maybe a more comprehensive course. That's how you can start out with something small, like a 2-hour workshop, and then build it into a course. It's not meant to be complicated, and it's also not meant to be difficult. It's just you need to try out something, and then if it doesn't work, change it. I want you to, I'm going to keep asking you questions. This is what this session is all about. It's really about really getting you to think. So I want you to think about what your first offer is. So I want you to use this framework, right? What problem are you solving? That's one. What solution are you offering? That is two. And then what result will your audience get from it? That's three. So those are the three things that I want you to kind of just write, and that will help you create your first offer. It's a simple framework. 3 questions. I'm going to repeat it. What problem are you solving? That is the first one. What solution are you offering for that problem? And then 3 is what result will your audience get from it, from that solution that you're giving them? Think about it. Maybe take 30 seconds, 45 seconds. I know you're going to spend time this week really thinking about this, but that first offer is just the beginning. You're going to build from there. If anybody has a first offer, even like just an idea of it, toss it in the chat. But this is how you start thinking about turning this idea, your purpose, which is your value, your strengths, your impact, and then now creating an offer and then monetizing it. And this is how you're going to grow. So I just want you to kind of see the foundation of how it starts and then the framework for how to build it. And the whole goal is, while you're here, or if you're watching this after, is really to inspire you to start creating those ideas and to start thinking. I mentioned this earlier, and again, I want to say it, right? This is the mindset shift that I really, really want you to embrace. And I know that it might be very difficult in the beginning, especially for maybe new entrepreneurs or, high achievers who are thinking, how can I start building something? And the thing I want you to think about, and I want you to really slowly understand it, is that monetizing your product is not about taking. If you think about it, the best way I can explain it, it's about giving. And this is the mindset shift that I want you to embrace. So it's not about taking, it's really about giving. So it's not taking, it's about giving. And the best way that I can help you understand that is that you're not selling, right? You're solving. Remember that you are not selling, you are solving. You're serving people who are looking for the exact solution that you have to offer. When you understand that, when you grasp that, when you think about that, it makes all the difference in the world. And when you now identify how to monetize your purpose, it doesn't seem as bad, or there's not this negative feeling behind it, because you're truly solving a problem and they really want your help. So that's how you have to start thinking about it. That's how you have to start understanding it. So now that we've figured out how to monetize your purpose, I want us to think about and talk about the systems that make it sustainable. A lot of us are some of us are you're starting out, you might be a one-man show or one-woman show, or you might even hire your first virtual assistant, which we talked about a little bit last week. Now, how do you create systems that make this sustainable so you can be thinking about this from a long-term perspective? And I see people typing in the comments. So keep coming, keep writing, and just keep encouraging and empowering other people. But now we've helped you identify your purpose, right? And you have kind of mapped out a way to monetize it. You might not figure this out, in our session together, but I've kind of given you the ideas and the nuggets that you need to take. And then we started to think about creating our first offer. It might still be in your head, but you've got to put it down on paper. But the challenge is then, how do you scale it without burning out? Because you might have a full-time job, and you might have your side hustle, and you're trying to figure this thing out. You now understand how you want to build your first offer, but then you're like, I don't want to burn out, right? The answer lies in systems. And when I try to think about explaining a system, right, it's just simply a repeatable process that lets you achieve consistent results with less time, with less effort. That's how you have to think about your systems. So it turns a one-time effort into something that's sustainable. So think over and over and over and over again. Those are systems. And you have to think about a system as a really well-oiled machine. I'll give you an example. A lot of us drink coffee here, right? If you were running a coffee shop, right, every time that the barista, if they had to figure out how to make a latte from scratch every single day, you're going to sell only 2. And that might be chaotic, right? But imagine if you now have the shop and you created recipes already, and you created training manuals and a smooth workflow so the people know how to do it, so the employees now know how to do it. That's what systems look like. You create recipes, you create manuals, you create workflows, and then you just repeat that over and over again. That brings order and scalability to your work. Remember, you just created your framework, you just created that first idea. Now think about how you can systematize it. So think about, if you are doing that, what I talked about earlier about the 2-hour workshop on time management. If you did that, you might think about making it digital. So that's like a system. And then when you create the full course, you are going to now think about how to make it work on its own. So then you might actually just record that course, so you don't have to give it over and over again. And then you make it digital, and then you could just send it to the world. That's how you have to start thinking about systems. But I want us to dive into 3 systems that make every, purpose-driven professional help figure out how to solve their problems. So the way that I want you to think about it is, the first system is, you need to think about income generation. So you need a system for generating income. And this could be an automated sales funnel for a digital product, like we just talked about. So think about a repeatable process for, onboarding coaching clients. So you do it once and then you'll figure out a way to make it better, to make it easier. Or you can even think about a marketing strategy that brings in leads consistently. So when you start thinking about income generation, you're thinking about sales funnel, and some of this might be really new to some of you. So like, what is even a sales funnel, right? How do you start onboarding people? But these are some of the things that we're going to be teaching in the community. So like figuring out how to start your business, how to grow, how to use sales funnel to get new leads, how to like bring in leads consistently. These are some of the things that I want us to, as a new entrepreneur, as you're growing, as you're stepping out, as you're being unstuck, becoming unstuck. These are some of the things that we want to talk about. So we talked about income generation, right? Think about support structure. So when we think about support structure, think about the tools, technology that will help you run your work smoothly. So I want you to think about virtual assistants, think about scheduling softwares, think about email automation. So you don't have to do the same thing over and over. And especially in the beginning where you're not making a ton of money, so you can hire the best, you can hire a full team. Think about ways that you can use tools, you can use technology, you can use AI to just make your life easier. The third one I want us to think about is resource management. So finally, when you think about resource management, right, it makes you optimize your time, your energy, and money more efficiently. So this means that you have to learn how to prioritize, right? Block your time and do the things that will bring you the most money. So think about the things that only you can do. Those are the things that you need to be doing. And then I want you to start thinking about allocating funds to where they'll create the most impact. I also want you to think about who. I mentioned it earlier a little bit, but think about who can help you move the needle, who can make your life easier. When we start growing, sometimes we feel like we have to do everything on our own. But I want you to remember that your zone of genius is at 20%. We talked about that last week. That is your zone of genius. You should only be doing your 20%. The 80%, you have to automate, you have to use tools, you have to use technology, you have to use people, and you have to start thinking about bringing a team. And a team can be your virtual assistant to start off with, someone who will help you take care of some of these tasks that you don't need to do so that you can do your 20%. Now, I want us to break these examples down into like really practical things. So when you think about income generation, right, think about it's a system of like how you can attract, how you can engage, and then how you can serve your audience consistently, or how you can serve your clients consistently. The best way to think about it is like every business needs some sort of pipeline. So it's something that takes them from point A, which is where they're curious, to then point B, where they become committed to your service, your product. And the best example I can think about, or the easiest one, is if you think about like a coach, right? If you're a coach and you're trying to get someone from point A to point B, this might mean something like using a webinar. You could start with a webinar to share expertise, so you can teach on something. And this is like the best way. Like if you are out there, I'll give you a real life example. So I watched a webinar on speaking. I'm looking to speak more, and that's one of my big goals for 2025. And so I watched a webinar on speaking, and this guy just did a webinar on how to speak better. And I loved it so much. But then he took it a step further. And at the end of the webinar, he then offered a one-on-one discovery call. And from that discovery call, then he then offered a quick course, a course that you can do by yourself. And then from the course, he then created a coaching. So that's how you can start thinking about like how to build income generating systems. It's that simple. And if you think about a digital product, right, it can mean also like driving traffic from your sales page to then like creating an email sequence to nurture your leads, so then you can convert them from curious to committed. But those are ways that you have to start thinking. And like I said, some of you, this might be brand new. So remember, we're taking one step today. And if the one step that you did today was just to create your purpose statement and to figure out what your product is and create the framework and use the framework to create your offer, that is a big win. Because you have to think about this. This is a marathon, and it's really not a sprint. So if this is the first time you're hearing about like email sequence and nurturing leads, that's okay. But if you came out of here today and you created an offer, and your first offer that you want to try out, that is such a big win. But I also want you to know that I'm accessible. If you want to take it to the next step of thinking about figuring out like, what email sequence can I use? How can I create this? How do I nurture leads? that's the whole purpose that we have the community. And like, I'm there to kind of help you, walk you through some of these processes. So I hope that you're thinking, and I hope that like, this is, I hope you're thinking about how you can start creating this. And like I said, I want to give you a general overview, but the reason why I want to do this is so that you can start asking those questions and that you can start answering it. So again, in your worksheet, think about, I want you to write down like one way that you can attract people to your offer. So you might do a video tomorrow on LinkedIn and share your story. And then at the end of that story, you might ask, hey, I struggled with this and I want to help you figure this out. And then put your calendar link and say, hey, jump on a call with me. Or you can, if you're, you know, if you're doing well, if you're a lot further on, you could use ads. You can use ads to attract people to your offer, or you could do word of mouth, or you can do referrals, or you can even do cold calls. So there's multiple ways that you can think about start getting people to think about that offer that you created. And then think about ways that you can engage with them. So write down or think about one way that you can engage them. I've given you multiple examples today. So think about, a free webinar. So just give value. Remember values, remember that money is exchange for value. So give them value. Let them know that what you're selling, what you're giving is very valuable. It's worth it. You can think about doing a weekly or a monthly newsletter just to give people value, to teach them, to help them with that pain point that they're struggling with. Think about, even like calendar appointments. So put stuff on your schedule, engage with your target audience, engage with your ideal avatar, and then think about one way to convert them. So, whether it's like a simple landing page or at the end of the webinar, it's a click to somewhere else. But how can you start thinking about how you can convert the people that you already know, your ideal audience, who you've already, their solution, their problem, you've created the solution. Now, how do you get them to fall in love with you, to trust you? And how do you get them to start attracting them to your offer? So if he said, I think this was earlier, but said that that's a big one for me, especially with so many people selling stuff that add no real value, just add to their lifestyle. That is very true. So you have to come up with something that is of value, that is really good, because you're right. In today where we are, right? So many things are being sold at you. So many things are being thrown at you. And so it's like you have to allow your people to filter through the noise, because you're really giving them a ton of value. That's really important. And then, like you said, your suggestions on engaging my target audience are very insightful. You're very welcome. So just think about that, right? You might not figure all of it out today, but I really want you to start thinking about it and it could be small. It doesn't have to be something really amazing. It doesn't have to be something really large. It could be small, but really very impactful. So I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is that they want to try to do everything themselves. And I said this before and I'll say it again. A lot of the times, the truth is that you might be the bottleneck to not allowing your business to grow, because you're trying to do everything yourself. So I want you to think about, if you are the bottleneck, your business won't grow. Your side gig won't grow. Whatever it is that you're trying to start will not grow. And so you have to try to figure out how to remove yourself. So I want you to think about three things, right? I want you to think about people. I said it before, this could be something as small as hiring a virtual assistant. If you don't even have, if you can't afford a full-time assistant, you might even outsource graphic designing right now. And that's something small. Or you might even collaborate with a business partner. Those are all people that can help you solve your problem. Again, see, it goes back to what is your problem? Someone else can solve it. So then think about tools. You don't have to do everything yourself. You don't have to send all those emails. You can use a scheduling app. You can use CRM platforms and CRM systems that help you send out beautifully designed emails, and they're very inexpensive. Or you can use automation tools like Zapier. But I want you to use technology in your favor, because there's so many things out there for us. I'll give you an example, right? Like this presentation you're looking at. It's, we put in the work, but we had AI help us create something like this. So start using technology to your favor. It's going to make your life a lot easier. And then as you're starting out, this is something that I struggled with and that we're doing better at Pheenyx. And I want you to start documenting how things are done so that they can be delegated or they can be repeated without having to reinvent the wheel. So it's like starting to create standard operating procedures of how you do stuff so that the next person can come and do the same thing because we've created it. And we struggled with this in the beginning because we had to do things over and over. But now when we start thinking about creating this SOPs, it's going to make your life easier. So as you're thinking, what is one task that you could outsource? What's one task that you can automate? Write that down or think about it. What's one tool or resource that will make your life easier, that you don't have to do everything yourself? Think about that. Especially in the age of AI, you can really, it can really help you like move things forward, help make your life easier so that you can do your 20%. I'm all about the 20% and I'll keep talking about that. So I told you to like kind of think about a task or a resource that you can use, but I want this to hurt a little bit. So think about what is slowing you down. You know, if you said, hey, I really, guys, January is about to be over. If you created these big dreams January 1 and you haven't solved some of it, what was stopping you? What was slowing you down? How could you get the support? That's what I want. That's what I want you to start thinking about right now. And then your time, your energy, your money, those are all really valuable resources. And if you don't manage them, they'll manage you, especially as you're starting out, as you're thinking. So I want to give you some really practical strategies, right? When you think about time, we all have the same 24 hours, but you see some people use it so beautifully and so magically. And it's not, you have to work at it to make it better. So I want you to start thinking about how you can block off time for deep work. So think about like using your Google Calendar and actually creating schedules in your calendar for like, this is my time. This is an hour of my time where I'm going to do just this. And you can use apps like I said, Google Calendar. You can use Notion to help you plan out your week, plan out your days so that you can use your time really well. And then in terms of energy, right? Pick the time that it's like peak productivity hours for you. I want you to schedule the hardest task during those times so that you're strongest, you're mentally focused, and you can get that done. And then as you're starting to build, right, I want you to reinvest a portion of your earnings back into what you're doing. So think about how, in the beginning, investing in yourself, investing in your business, thinking about putting all of that back in to try to start scaling your business. Again, as I'm telling you this, I want you to be thinking about like, how can I implement this right now? What can I do right now to help me manage my time better? What can I do right now to help me, like, when are my peak energy seasons, like my peak energy moments that I can do the most work? And where can I reinvest to help me grow, to help the business grow? Think about those things, or like put them in the comments. You guys have been doing really good with engaging in the chat today. So pick one thing, just one thing. I want you to pick one thing and I want you to go implement and go do that one thing. So now, as we kind of, I wouldn't say wrap up, we're almost there, but I want you to think about like how you can start turning the systems into success, right? I said it before. Sometimes we want to like bite the whole apple when all you want to do today is just take a small bite. You want to like eat the whole thing, but really just start with one tiny thing today, one tiny decision, one tiny step that you're going to take, then test it and then scale from there. You don't have to have everything figured out today. And that's what a lot of people struggle with. You do not have to have everything figured out today. Pick that one thing and do it. You have to just take the first step. And that's what I want. I want to push you. I want to encourage you. Take that first step. Sometimes we think it has to be perfect. And I'm speaking from someone who struggles with perfectionism. It doesn't have to be. Do that one thing, figure it out, and then take it from there. So if you've kind of seen how we've been working, right? We've built the foundation with systems. Now I want us to, last step, which I think is the most important, and I told you we're coming to an end, is taking action and creating momentum. You have to start today. Like, you have to start today, because if you wait till Monday, you're going to lose steam. You're going to lose momentum. So I really want you to start today to start creating it. So we spent time to develop, right, this personalized plan that we want to implement. Now I want to create like a really clear, actionable roadmap for you to start doing. So I want you to think, what are my next steps? What am I going to start doing tomorrow? So this is where we are right now, right? You discovered your purpose sweet spot. You wrote your purpose statement. You learned how to monetize it. So it's like figuring out a problem, figuring out how to solve that problem, and then figuring out and then creating that framework. And then you build systems to help you support that vision. So think tools, think how can you use like those systems, the people to help you support that vision. Now I want us to move from this insight. If you are not writing down, I want you to move from insight to action, because clarity without action is just like potential that's left untapped, and that's what we don't want. So we have brought some clarity to by asking yourselves those questions and then answering it, and now we want to take action. The truth is, the longer you wait to take action, the harder it becomes, because you just lose steam, you lose momentum, and momentum does not come from waiting. It comes from doing. So that the more you do, like you create more, like think about it like embers in a flame, right? The more you put, the more the bigger the flame is, the bigger the fire is. That's what I want you to think about what you're doing today, is like creating a plan that makes action really inevitable. So because we're thinking about creating something big, but we're starting small, right? I want you to just think about it in phases. So phase one, I want your immediate action. So think about like maybe in the first 2 weeks, focus on quick wins, focus on doing that small thing, so that you can then again build momentum to keep going. So it could be writing your first offer. It could be, like I said, tomorrow, turning on the camera and doing a video and posting that somewhere. It could be, the first step could actually be meeting with your mentor and saying, this is what I've created. Hold my hand and walk me through the next month or the next 3 months. Or it could just be like launching something simple to test your idea. That's phase one. That's the next 2 weeks. That's kind of the next like 1 to 2 weeks. And then phase two, I want you to think about it as like testing and feedback, right? So think about maybe in the next month, test that offer out. Test that system that you've created, get feedback. Remember in the beginning of this presentation, I said, if you have feedback, please give me feedback. We're doing a 4-part series, and I want to make sure that it's valuable for you guys, and I want to make adjustments. So from the week 1 to now, I've made several adjustments based on the feedback that I've gotten, and I've refined my approach to exactly what I'm bringing to you guys. So it's that simple. I want you to kind of think about that. And then as you're doing this, as you're getting feedback, making adjustments, you need people. So that's why I've been, that's why we've been pushing to join the community, because it's really where you can have people keep you accountable, where you can have people hold your hand, where you can walk together and figure out like, how are we doing this together? That's all about like keeping each other accountable. And then the last kind of step in our roadmap, if we think about it, is like focus on growth, right? Start thinking about ways to automate your processes. Start thinking about expanding your reach. Start thinking about scaling. And all of that, we talked about it today. And like I said, today, all you're doing is making that one small step. And again, I'll just give you an example, a personal example, to help you understand that like this wasn't, I didn't build this in a day. And so you don't have to think about creating something grand in one day. And so when I first started Pheenyx, right, my plan was my first 90 days was just like testing my messaging with a small group of investors. And that's really how I started. So, and from that messaging, right, I learned, I refined, and then I grew from there. So I started asking them, like, what do you want? What are some of your needs? What could I bring to you that would, make what we're offering very valuable? And the conversation that I have today is so different from the conversation that I had almost 3 years ago, but that's how it started. And you continue to iterate your process, you continue to fix it, you continue to refine it. And like the conversations, like I said, my investor conversations are so different 3 years ago than they were today. I've gotten better, I keep refining it, but I didn't start, it wasn't perfect day one. I just had a conversation and I said, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm learning. I want to teach you. Let's grow together. That's how it started. So I told you that like we have to now get very specific. And this is the plan that we have to create. It doesn't have to be perfect, but what it does is it gives you direction, and then it breaks it down into very, very actionable steps. So one thing I want you to do, I told you small step, but I want you to set a clear goal for what you want to accomplish in the next 3 months, right? It's already January 30th. The month is already over. So if you had a plan January 1 and you haven't hit it, or you haven't even started, maybe today is a day to start. And so with that one goal, I want you to list just 3 actionable steps that's going to help you achieve that goal. We talked about that. And then I want you to identify 2 resources or 2 people that you'll need to support, that will help you achieve that goal. And then I want you to set a deadline. Set a deadline on when you're going to get that first step done. It's really big. The only way that you'll push yourself, the only way that you'll grow is if you start doing this and if you do this well. Remember, I told you, keep it small, keep it realistic, but you want to build momentum from there. So I just want you to kind of put this in your mind because you're going to go, and I know you're going to start implementing, but think about how you can create this 90-day goal, and then hopefully share it with us, because we want to support you as you celebrate like clarity and commitment. But it starts today. It starts with what you're making a decision to do today. So I'm pretty excited. So as we kind of come to a close, the secret to staying consistent, because you have to, if you have big dreams, if you have big goals, if you really want to make a difference, the mundane, like it's in the consistency, right? It's in the everyday thing that you're doing. Like the big wins will come, but like the tiny things that you do every day, that's what's going to keep you forward. And you need that even on the hard days. So these momentum builders, they're simple, but they're very powerful. So let me break it down for you, right? Use some sort of daily action tracker to make your process visible. So we're going to be creating a tracker that will be accessible for members of the community, because we want to help you grow. It just starts with writing it down. I'm such a big fan of writing things down, because then you can see it and you bring it to life. And then I want you to think about like weekly check-ins with yourself, weekly check-ins with your accountability partner. And we're actually going to start having weekly check-ins in the community, so that you get excited about tackling your goals. And also, so you know that you're not doing this alone. It's not just you, that all of us have these big goals that have been placed inside of us, and we're starting to bring it to life. And then think about creating like a resource list, right? Tools, courses, mentors, all the things that you need along the way. Just write it down. And I think that that's how you can start making this very practical. That's what you need to start doing to stay consistent. I remember when I started building my business, right? Guys, I promise, I committed to take one action every single day, no matter how small. And over time, all of that just started, like all of those tiny steps started creating, it was those small steps that created the big result that I'm seeing today. I'll give you another example, right? I one day said, I think it was 2 years ago now, I didn't have any social media experience. And I told myself every day I'm going to post on LinkedIn. I'm going to share something valuable, maybe a journey, something I learned, a quote that I really like, a book I was reading. And that's what I did, but I stayed consistent. I was committed to it. And every day I kept doing that thing. Every day I kept doing the work. And now it's grown. And like now I've built a community inside of LinkedIn, and like we support each other, we grow together. But it started with one day making a decision. I'm going to do this every day, and not falling off. Now, if you fall off, it's okay. But the thing is, like, I'm gonna continue. I'm gonna stay consistent, and I'm gonna pick myself back up. So that's how to think about it. So this is your moment to commit, right? And you're not doing it for me. You're doing it for yourself. At the end of the last page, right, there's you're going to sign a contract, literally just your name, sign it, and put the date. But what you're saying to yourself is that I believe in my purpose and I'm ready to take action. And that's what it is. That's what it looks like. It's like I am committing to myself by writing the date, by signing, and by circling that first action that you're going to take. It's not about perfection. And you might take that first action and it might not go according to plan. It's okay. You'll fix it. You'll work on it. But it's about starting. So I want you to take a moment, right? And just to acknowledge what you've done today. What you've done is that you've taken the step towards creating a life that aligns with your purpose. And that's how it starts. And you're going to continue to build on it. You're going to continue to work on it. But you made the decision today to start. And I applaud you for that. And I want you to also applaud yourselves. So we started, our journey today was just about starting and about creating. And it's just the beginning. In our last session, which is part 4 of our expansive blueprint series, we're going to focus on momentum and then building long-term success. What does that look like? So we will talk about how to really create the system that you need to take you to the next level, as you don't want to be stuck anymore and you really want to build an expansive life, because that's what it's about. It's now thinking, how do I scale my purpose into something that's even bigger? Because you know in your heart that you're called to do more. I want to leave you with this. The bridge to this purpose-driven life, right? It wasn't built in a day. You started taking the step today and started adding to the building blocks, and that's what matters. And you're going to create something spectacular. You're going to create something amazing. But it starts with taking that first step, which I think is what matters the most. You'll see the success, you'll see the thing that you've created at the end, but you made the decision to take the first step. So I want to see you here next week. Come back. I think it's very important, because I think actually part of it is also staying committed and staying consistent. And it also means showing up and learning and encouraging each other and growing together, because I think that's really what it's all about. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for spending this hour and a half with me this evening. I hope that it was enlightening. I hope that you learned something I hope that you learned something amazing, which was take the first step. We answered all the questions, and we created all the frameworks, and we created all the structures to go. But the biggest thing is that you are taking the first step and that you're creating something. So I just wanted to leave you with this, right? I told you all the benefits of joining the community, but I think that the biggest thing is just like really taking the time to create something and to like link arms with others who want to do this, who want to grow with you. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm just going to say, if you have any questions at all, toss it in the comments, toss it in the chat. You're very welcome. Just let me know. I'd love to just hang around for a little bit. If anybody has any questions, I'd love to answer it. And this is another feedback I was told, because sometimes typing takes a little long. So I'm just going to give people like a minute or two. It's 7:27, 8:27 for some. So I just give people a minute or two to just like ask questions, if they have any questions, or if there's any last minute feedback or anything that they want. I'd love to just pause and answer it. But I want to say thank you. Thank you for spending this hour and a half with us. Thank you for just, for learning, for conversing, for joining in the conversation and helping you grow and helping me grow. Okay. I think that was maybe a minute or two. So if there are no more questions, again, I just want to say thank you, and I will see you next week. Have a wonderful evening.